When he was younger, when Naofumi Iwatani was younger, he was told all the time that gaming would get him nowhere. Nowhere at all. He was told that if he continued down this path of just gaming his life away, he would do just that. Game his life away. It would be gone. Any potential he ever had in his life would be gone. But fortunately enough, Naofumi was able to make a living off of gaming. Gaming alone. He became a YouTuber, became a pro gamer, would fight and play at the highest stage of them all. Anything you can think of, he was pro in. He was one of the best gamers, if not the best gamer, alive. Naofumi went from controller to PC to anything you can think of. From Call of Duty to Valorant to CSGO. Any video games that you can think of, stuff like Halo, Mortal Kombat, even Super Smash Bros. Naofumi was good at it all. He was pro at all of it. He would just jump from game to game, and whatever game he would go into, it's like he was building up a nation. A Naofumi nation. A nation of people that cheered him on and loved to watch him game. Naofumi knew what he wanted to do in his life, and that was to become a pro gamer. But what he didn't know is that when he would look at his final screen, he would look at that screen after finally beating his arch rival, he would see something different. Text would show up after he just won his final match against him, and he'd see text that read something far different, saying that he was the legendary gamer hero. But Naofumi was confused. Was this a custom text? Was this some custom thing that they were doing? He looked around and began to try and ask people, but it seems like everyone around him was gone. Everything around him was completely disappeared, as if it was just a flash of light. Gone in an instant. Naofumi Iwatani would follow right after it, and he would disappear into nothingness and reappear in some odd-looking room. When he looked to his left, he saw 3 people with various weapons. A sword, a spear, and a bow. He looked at his hands, and he saw a controller, and he felt on his neck a headset. Naofumi was in complete shock. As he continues to stare in awe, multiple people run down to greet the 4 brand new heroes. Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I'm back with Professional, Naofumi, the legendary gamer hero. If you enjoy, make sure to leave a like, sub, and comment down below. As you guys can kind of tell, I'm still a little bit sick. Obviously, like I said before in the other video, I am feeling a good bit better, but I still have a bit of a, nasally, my nose is kind of stuffed, and it's kind of hard for me to talk for long periods of time. So, yeah, that's about it, though. I'm not going to waste much more of your time talking about that. Make sure to check the links in the description for all my channels, my Spotify, stuff like that. And let's just get right into the what if. Let's get it. Naofumi would question what's going on as these knights approach him and say that the king wants to speak with all 4 of them. The other 3 of them look at Naofumi in shock. He doesn't have a weapon. What would this even mean? It looks like he has a controller. They obviously know that he's some sort of gamer and asks about it and Naofumi is confused. You don't know who I am? They're confused. Are we supposed to? Motoyasu says kind of oddly. I mean, no, I guess not. But most people know me, especially if you know video games. Are you guys gamers? They say they are, hardcore gamers at that, and Naofumi says he's the #1 professional in the world. But they immediately say that's not the case. It's not Naofumi, it's this guy or this guy or this guy. And they're all shocked, but they don't have enough time to talk about it, so they head to the king. The king explains exactly where they are and why they are here, to protect them from the waves. The waves are this catastrophe that have been running rampant on top of all of them, and they need all 4 of their help. They look at Naofumi though, or the king does, and is confused. Who is this guy? Well, he has no weapon. He must be some random dude. And he tells the random dude just to scurry off, that there's no reason for him to be here. But Naofumi says that's not the case. He was summoned here as well. The other 3 heroes say that as well, but the knights refuse to believe the sentiment and begin pushing him out. It's as if they're not wanting him here for the reason that he doesn't have a weapon. The other 3 heroes are shocked, but after being basically bribed with more and more money, they don't really say a word. Naofumi just doesn't really know what to think. He's kind of scared. He's never been on his own like this in a long time. Frankly, he's always been kind of sheltered by his mother, his father, and people like that. They gave him this chance to be this big success, and frankly, he's never really left home. That might sound sad, but my man's is rich. He's just really sharing the wealth with his family, and he's just in a comfortable spot. Nonetheless, Naofumi does find a lot of struggles walking around the city as people actually introduce themselves. They think that Naofumi's a good-looking dude, and they get this nice-looking aroma off of him, as if he's obviously a good guy. Naofumi begins to wonder what all of this statistical thing is about, learning that this game is similar to some others he's actually played in the past. Trying to figure out every single aspect of it, he does pick it up relatively quickly. The only problem he's currently having is money. So he actually does begin to scour, maybe grab some plants and sell them, just so he can see what that money looks like. He wants to know if maybe, just maybe, there's some money that he could actually replicate in this world and maybe mass produce it, or maybe make money in a different way, because he assumes that his power must be some sort of video gaming. He begins to mess with his controller until he presses the odd looking button in the middle, and when he does, it actually shows up a holographic screen that only he can see. This holographic screen has a multitude of games, but it seems like he can only choose about 1 or 2 of them every couple 5 to 10 levels, so it kind of makes it rough. What does he choose? What is he supposed to choose? Until he realizes. He looks at the money that he uses in this world. So what kind of money should basically be able to replicate, at least similar to that type of money? He's looking at it closely, and then he realizes almost every MMORPG that he's ever played has that type of money. We're talking about World of Warcraft and stuff like that. Most of those games have that type of money, and he has the best ways to make that money. So if he can play video games in this world, it must have something to do with real life. So he begins to basically mess around with unlocking World of Warcraft, but also unlocking one more other game. And that's actually Minecraft, ironically enough. He decides to unlock this game because he felt that, well, it'd probably be the best choice for at least starting out. He has one that can probably give him some weaponry, or at least some decent armor, if that is how his weapon works, quote unquote. And then he has Minecraft, which will allow him to basically make structures and get things set up relatively easier for himself. So he begins messing with these games, playing them literally on a holographic screen, and eventually he's actually able to drag those games out. It seems kind of odd. His level doesn't really go up much while he's doing this, but maybe he can enact some of these, you could say, games or weapons upon this world that he's in right now. So he starts messing with Minecraft, eventually getting armor and a diamond sword, and eventually just goes out and starts swinging at random things, basically swinging at monsters and stuff like that, killing a couple over and over. He's pretty shocked to see this, but his levels seem to be increasing at a rapid rate. It seems that once he's enacting the games that he's been playing in this world, seem to be gaining him a decent amount of experience points. So he continues on. He does basically all that for about one night, and then builds himself a little shack of some sorts, but it expands to be a bigger place, definitely by the end of the day, and he has his own little home. He actually builds it outside of a nearby village, and he actually pays them a little bit of cash so he can do so. This village is called Loot Village. It seems that he stumbled across it while he was just exploring, trying to get a lay of the land, and he just made this small house next to them. They offered that he could rent from them for really cheap, but he says that it's fine, that he can make his own place, and if more people join and come here, maybe he can even build more houses for them as a debt to basically pay them off. And they say that's fine, that he already pays the amount that they already set, but he says that he really doesn't mind in terms of helping people out. Like I said, Naofumi is still this nice, good-looking dude. He's not really mean by any means, and frankly, yeah, he might have got kicked out of the kingdom, but he had no attachment to the kingdom at all. Like, he wasn't really intertwined over there at all, and he barely learned that he was some hero. So yeah, he's learning about this world, but he's still kind of living a sort of normal life. He continues on leveling up, eventually getting to level 10, and he starts unlocking more and more games. Unlocking games like Halo, games like Mortal Kombat, stuff like this, where it seems that he's actually going to be able to gain physical people to come out and basically fight for him. That's kind of like his party. This would give him a chance to basically level up even faster, killing tons and tons of monsters, and eventually he would reach level 20 in a matter of about a week or so. Money, straight up, is not a problem. He hasn't found a problem in terms of money at all, and he's been making a ton of it through other games that he has as well. And then he would also bring in maybe proper memorabilia and materials from various games and bring them into his world, sell them off, and it would be a ton of money he's making off of that. So money, like I said, wouldn't be a problem by any means. Protection is the main issue, and eventually he would get that protection. He was a pro in terms of Mortal Kombat and stuff like that, and he played competitively a lot, even in Halo, so he knows a lot of the ups and downs in certain characters. But nonetheless, some of these characters like Sub-Zero, Scorpion, if they're under his control, they're going to be super powerful and super strong. But it seems like their level is at a level of 1, so the more he uses them to basically using his controller and basically having them fight on their own, it seems that they're gaining levels too. But he is limited in terms of how many that he has out. He can only have about 1 or 2 characters per game, depending on his level. Like right now, he can't really bring out a ton of characters because he's such a low level. Yeah, he might be level 20, but in the grand scheme of things, those characters that he's bringing out aren't a high level, and it all basically stacks and multiplies on top of each other. So he kind of divides his levels within multiple games, and at least that's what he realizes, and there's a bunch of subcategories in terms of every single game he has. Nonetheless, after the day finishes up, Naofumi begins to basically just, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, blah blah blah, same old, and he eventually heads back into the kingdom to maybe find some other materials and things like that he wouldn't normally have. And a man actually heard of Naofumi, about how rich Naofumi currently is, but he's kept it pretty much under the radar. So this man that is actually running this slave market of some sorts invites Naofumi in. Naofumi isn't so sure about this, but when he enters, he sees that there are a ton of slaves there. And he gets this weird feeling in the pit of his stomach, like it's disgusting him, like it makes it feel gross. Bunch of slaves here, this is horrible. Naofumi walks up to all of them, and most of them, if not all of them, are very calm around Naofumi, and it seems like they're not too overly aggressive by any means. But eventually Naofumi decides that he's just gonna straight up buy all of them. Yeah, buy all of them, because he kind of has infinite money, more or less, at this point. But he just buys all of the slaves that are there to more or less just free them all up. In which the slave market owner is kind of shocked, but he'll take the money how he can get it, and he even gives him a slight discount for buying all of them at one time. Taking basically just all of the slaves there, bringing them to Loot Village, and explaining all of their roles in terms of the village, in terms of protecting the village, in terms of the waves, blah blah blah. And that eventually he'll spread them out and they can kind of live on and do whatever they want. Since none of them have slave crests, they don't necessarily need to listen to Naofumi, and the highest level one is the only one that's a little bit, you could say, not as much fond of Naofumi. But nonetheless, as Naofumi levels up, more and more of them will grow fond of him. And a couple of them are actually pretty fond of him. A smaller dog of some sorts, and then also a little girl by the name of Raftalia, one that is pretty sick. Naofumi is able to get basically this easy potion that more or less just cures her immediately, and that cold that she had goes away. Naofumi questions why she would want to even associate with him, more or less fight alongside of him, and she says that he saved everybody, so she feels like she owes him that. But Naofumi shakes his head, saying that there is no owe. She doesn't owe anybody at all, and that she can live here peacefully if she so chooses. But she also says that the waves do exist, and that she wants to be able to live. She wants to be able to fight alongside everybody else and make sure everybody else is safe as well. Naofumi's impressed. He's intrigued at the idea that Raftalia just presented and says that, sure, why not? He's going to get her some weaponry in which he can actually create himself, ironically enough, and gives her that said weaponry. A simple katana and some simple armor from various games. You can even think of Mortal Kombat. There's tons of armors that he can do there, World of Warcraft and stuff like that. So she has some pretty good armor that is perfectly tailored to her, and frankly, she just needs to learn how to use it. So he begins to basically set up training dummies and anything he can possibly think of, and even spawn in monsters himself, just simple ones that are basically going to more or less spar with her and not try to actually kill her. And then once he feels that she's ready, they'll go out and start fighting other things. And that happens after about a week. After that week passes, they can finally go out, start slashing through actual monsters, and Raphtalia gets a lot more accustomed to killing things. That fear of blood would slowly but surely go away, and Naofumi would just embrace all of them. Every person that was, or every person, animal, monster that was a slave, Naofumi would just take care of them, make sure that they're all good to go, and if they really wanted to fight with them, they could. But frankly, it was more for the benefit of Loot Village, protecting that village as much as possible. That is basically his home base at this moment. So Naofumi continues on for the next, obviously, about 3 more weeks or so, and he just continues leveling up, and frankly, it's actually relatively easy with some of these people that he has in terms of video games. He has strong figures like Scorpion, like Master Chief, that more or less just fight for him. And then he can fight for himself as well, summoning in blasters or different weaponry that he can personally use. But in terms of himself, he mostly just lets his other gamer-like characters fight for him. And he finds this to be extremely beneficial, eventually getting to about a level of 38, and Raphtalia about a level of about 21. Naofumi, obviously being 10 levels higher now, he has 2 more games to choose from, and there are some extremely powerful games he can choose from, in which he chooses games like Xenoverse, or aka like Dragon Ball Z like games, and those two would just, those games would make him extremely more powerful, being able to have more and more leveling stats like World of Warcraft has and like how Xenoverse has, and on top of more and more powers that he can just put within himself and not just everybody else, makes him extremely overpowered. Of course, like I said, there are limitations to this because there's going to be level subcategories for each one. So yes, he may have those levels on that Xenoverse and it would make him like a Dragon Ball character, but he's extremely weak in terms of that category because he's never really trained with it by any means. And on top of that, it takes time in that game to even level up and get attributes. And there are no quests in this world that he can really replicate until at least a higher level that he's going to be. So, of course, there's a big boost in power, which would make the first wave, let's be honest, a bit of a wash. But nonetheless, that first wave would come after they go check out the Dragon Hourglass. Him and Raphtalia are really the only ones that go because she's the one that looks the most humanoid, and she's approaching more of that adulthood stage where she just looks like a normal human being, but you know, with that raccoon tail and little ears. But they check the Dragon Hourglass to see that it's actually not too long before the next wave, 24 hours in fact, and they're approached by Motoyasu and the other 2 heroes, Itsuki and Ren. They begin to ask how Naofumi has been, and Naofumi says that he's been just fine. He's been kind of just on his own. They apologize for kind of abandoning him, and he says that he never really took it that way, but he says that it's truly fine. He's found his own little home, his own home base, and if he's truly one of the heroes and it wasn't a mistake, he should be able to keep up with them at least. They say that they can only hope so because based on what they would know about a gamer-like hero, he must be extremely strong, or at least strong if he just knew how to level up properly. Naofumi says that he should know how to level up properly, and he thinks he understands how, and to not worry about him, that just to worry about the task at hand. They all nod, and since they don't really have a beef with Naofumi by any means, they wish him good luck, and they wish each other good luck, and they head off once again. Naofumi heads back to Loot Village. His goal is to protect them, not really handle the main boss, and if the main boss isn't dead by the time, well, they're done cleaning up Loot Village, then he'll probably head over and help with the main boss as well. This will give him a good idea of how strong these waves are, because obviously at this moment, he has no clue by any means. He doesn't really know if the waves are extremely powerful or actually extremely weak. He hasn't had a clue by any means, only based on the people that he's seen so far, or the monsters he's seen so far. So when the wave begins, he begins to fight off monster after monster, being that of these zombies and like skeleton-like monsters, and same thing with these flying-like hornets. But it seems like those hornets, those monsters, those people, or those monsters in general, aren't much of a challenge. Naofumi destroys through them like it was nothing, and so does Raphtalia, at least to a certain extent, only a couple of them. The stronger monsters, she really can't keep up too well, but she is gaining levels as they're fighting. And frankly, Naofumi is just summoning the power that he has from various games like Xenoverse, and summoning people like Master Chief to basically just to have an assault of gunfire. This continues on, and frankly, he racks up a good amount of experience points from this, breaching the level 40. He actually sees that he could unlock 2 more games. That's kind of what the whole trend has been. Or he can actually use that experience to more or less inject that into the games he currently has. So he does just that. He wants to boost those levels, maybe focus on these about 6 games he currently has at the moment, and go from there. So he continues to boost those levels and continues to level them up as the wave is practically over. Well, it seems like they handled it. Good job, Raphtalia, and good job everybody else. Is everyone safe? I can get some healing potions and healing items if you need them. Everyone says that they're fine. It seems like they're completely unscratched. Even the people of Loot Village are happy that he did that, and they even don't want to take his payments anymore, because obviously he makes payments every month or every couple days, stuff like that. But he says that it's fine. I mean, frankly, Naofumi has so much money, it doesn't even matter. He has literally an infinite money glitch. That's whatever. But he continues to just basically do his thing at Loot Village, helping people out and anything you can really think of. But at this point, he doesn't get invited to have a nice little state dinner. He doesn't get invited anywhere. But that would eventually come back on him when Motoyasu, Mine, and a bunch of guards show up at Loot Village. And they say that it's in basically the name of Motoyasu that this is now his village, but Naofumi says that's just not the case. He can't do that. He even looks at Motoyasu and tries to reason with him initially, saying that it's kind of messed up. You're raising taxes to the point that they won't be able to pay for it. So, well, what's going on here? And Naofumi actually gets a response out of Motoyasu, something actually relatively modest, but Mine basically just shuts it down, saying that Naofumi isn't a real hero and that he can't even have a say in any of this. And he says that she can say whatever she wants, but at the end of the day, he protected this village, and he's not going to just let them take it over, and that it just can't happen that way. She looks at Motoyasu, but Motoyasu actually doesn't really have an intention at fighting Naofumi. Frankly, they have no ill will toward each other. They're relatively nice to each other. Naofumi's been kind of out of the picture, doing his own thing, and Motoyasu doesn't see a problem with Naofumi. Maybe this will be a problem for Mine, and she might need to try to manipulate a story around him. But just as she's about to say another word, a shadow shows up with this odd-looking paper. It seems like a scroll, and it says something about basically not being able to do what she's about to do. Frankly, Mine is frustrated by this, and Naofumi can see by the look on her face, forcing her to eventually leave. They don't even challenge Naofumi in any way, and Motoyasu weirdly apologizes to Naofumi. And at least Naofumi is glad that they're on good terms. Hopefully it would stay this way. Naofumi eventually would begin to talk to Raphtalia about exploring a bit more. Maybe it'd be good for them to actually head out. He then summons something from a video game. He actually summons a Nimbus. A Nimbus that basically, if you're not good, you won't be able to ride it, but since Naofumi and Raphtalia are pure good, it's completely fine. So they hop on the Nimbus and begin flying off to actually search for more villages. During their travels, they do come across a man that's kind of trotting down the road and kind of tired. They also come across someone else deeper in the distance, but they decide to help this man first. It seems like this man is actually trying to bring this medicine for his grandmother. So Naofumi quickly takes him to his grandmother, giving her the medicine, and basically it seems to work, sort of. but Naofumi also comes up with his own medicine, giving it to her, and she stands up like she's basically been hit with a magic wand that has made her 50 times stronger. Naofumi gives her basically this medicine and she's back to her old self. She's shocked, thanking him profusely about it, and he says that it's truly no problem, but he needs to head off. So him and Raphtalia head off again to see another man, the same man that they saw further down the line, being harassed by a bunch of bandits. He begins to say that he'll give as much money as they want just to leave him alive, but they say that they have other things in mind. But Naofumi and Raphtalia immediately go down there and say that that isn't the best idea, that they should really back off, frankly. Naofumi then immediately, his hair begins to slightly stand up, as if the wind beneath him begins to pick up, and he's slightly able to hover and fly forward. You might be thinking, why isn't he flying like normal? Why would he use the Nimbus to fly then? But he doesn't have the best of control. Even with adding boosts to the Xenoverse game and other games like that from his last level, 10 levels of level up, he still seems to be not in complete control over that state. But he's able to punch people, and when he punches people, it hurts bad. Like, strong enough that if he doesn't pull his punch, it'd probably put a hole in their stomach. Nonetheless, he completely defeats all of them, defeating most, if not all, of the bandits swiftly, and Raphtalia finishes the rest off, and they're out cold on the ground. He ties them up really quick and just kind of leaves them there, and he tells the man, or asks the man, where he's headed. So he takes the man exactly where they're going, or where he wants to go, and the man begins to say that he can teach Naofumi so many different things about how to make money, about trading, but Naofumi says that he's already the richest man in this world, and to not really worry. And obviously the man is confused. What is he talking about? How are you just the richest man in the world without knowing any trade tactics, without any of that? In which Naofumi's kind of just like, well, I can't really tell you that. That's kind of a secret. So, nonetheless, Naofumi continues on, but the man actually insists on giving him some information in terms of missions. Naofumi says that he doesn't mind. He'll definitely take some missions because he wants to help as many people as possible, leading to him, first off, getting a mission to go check out this odd-looking plant. Supposedly there's these plants that are overgrown and are basically attacking the citizens of their village, so Naofumi is tasked to go check that out relatively quickly. When he arrives, he sees this giant plant, and he realizes how bad the state is currently. He heads over to check out more or less what's going on, and he asks the villagers. He's only been given a small herbicide, but the villagers give him some important information about where the plant has come from, which is basically from the Spear Hero or Multiasu, and Naofumi learns that they are extremely reckless. These heroes, or other heroes that he's currently dealing with, are extremely reckless to the point that they can put other people in danger, the same people they're trying to prevent or trying to not hurt. Naofumi says that this herbicide is probably too weak, but he can actually enhance it. Raphtalia is confused, and he says that he did have another game that he unlocked, and it was kind of a childhood game just because he felt that it might have been good for food production, but he guesses this is probably a good time to reveal it as well. And that game, ironically enough, is Stardew Valley, and he says that it can be configured a little bit in the game settings, that he can actually make this herbicide a lot stronger, dealing with various different plants. And since most of these games have mods in a technical sense in terms of coding, he could actually regulate it so that the herbicide will kill this plant more or less instantaneously. But he'll probably have to plant his own seeds here and actually start a big growth pattern, because if he doesn't, then the terrain will probably die out. Raphtalia says, or asks if it's a risk, but Naofumi says that it's not that big of a risk, frankly, and it's a bigger risk keeping these things around. So obviously he gets rid of them using that advanced herbicide, and he begins planting more and more plants nearby the village, so that the village can have a constant food supply no matter what. Naofumi continues just tampering with the food supply a little bit after a little bit, just so they can basically have a really good food supply for a long time, telling them exactly how to monitor it and also various ways to actually make it better. They're thankful for everything, and Naofumi leaves them some special items that would help them in that little bit of crop maintaining, and Naofumi begins to head off to their next mission. Obviously, he doesn't need the money for this, but it's good basically visiting different places to help them out. He also then brings a delivery to this weird hot spring spa thing. It's good for him and Raphtalia just to relax. So that was a plus. It was more like a vacation day than anything, though, because he wasn't really helping many people. It was just straight up delivering a package. Until he gets signals that a nearby village is actually going through a plague. So Naofumi heads over there. His whole intention is kind of just to like purify the air. That was kind of the idea when he heads over there. Maybe make a temporary glass dome over the village so that they can get some oxygen filtration and stuff like that. But when he arrives there, he begins to work on that after talking to some of the villagers, but they actually tell him that above is actually where the whole problem is. The problem is that there's this dragon that is currently up on the hill and on the mountain that is causing a good bit of trouble. That dragon is actually causing this plague. Naofumi asks about it and questions why would the dragon cause the plague, and is it dead? In which they say yes, and that the sword hero Ren actually killed it, but didn't dispose of it. Naofumi, hearing this, is kind of annoyed, but says that he will dispose of it and it shouldn't be too difficult. But before that, he gives them temporary medicine that would completely nullify the sickness, and also makes that glass dome he was talking about, at least for now. Then he'll tear it down after, using some of his video game powers, and then obviously everything should be pretty good after that. He heads up the mountain, and when he does, and when he arrives, he begins to look around and sees the dragon laid out on the floor. He begins to walk over to the dragon and says to Raphtalia that they'll just need to cut it up, put it away, and they should have some storage bins that will basically make this a lot easier. Something called an ender chest. It's kind of odd how it works, and same thing with all just regular chests, but at least in an ender chest he can put it in, or put in the dragon pieces, and it seems like it will kind of just more or less poof out of existence, like recycling. Like some weird advanced recycling, sort of. He then begins to actually chop the dragon up, chopping at its tail, but just as Naofumi chops at its tail, the dragon reawakens. Coming alive, the dragon wants a fight. Naofumi looks on in complete shock and isn't able to react quick enough and gets hit by the leftover part of the dragon's tail, sending him flying. Raphtalia sees Naofumi go flying and she jumps after him to grab him, but Naofumi has multiple broken ribs. With the dragon overhead looming, they're not sure what they're going to do. The dragon looks at both of them and is about to end their lives, going to breathe fire entirely on Naofumi and also Raphtalia. Naofumi picks up his controller though and begins to click buttons in hopes that he can find something to combat this. But as he's doing this, a giant flame begins to get blasted at Naofumi and Raphtalia. They're entirely consumed, and the entire area seems to be with fire and smoke. All the people, the villagers below, are concerned, seeing the giant fire blast, and they can't tell if Naofumi and Raphtalia are still alive. And that is a wrap. That is a wrap. At least for this part. I believe this is going to be a 3-parter, depending how I feel in terms of part 2. I'm, like I said, still getting over being a bit sick, so my voice kind of hurts. It's nothing too major, as you can tell. For those of you that actually notice, like you can see like slight differences in my voice and my tone. But I'm still getting over it. So normally this would be like an hour-long episode. Normally I do these hour-long parts and then the next part will be about 30 minutes. But I think I might do 3 parts, 30 minutes each. So cool. I don't know if you guys will like that more, but nonetheless, I hope you all enjoy. And if you did, make sure to leave a like, sub, comment down below, all that good stuff. And I hope all of y'all have an amazing day. Later.
I don't wanna waste what's left.